So here's the thing about mandatory galactic peace summits. They're about as peaceful as a cage match, just with better lighting and complimentary beverages. Marcus Webb stood in the observation deck of Concordia 7, nursing his third coffee of the morning and wondering whose brilliant idea it was to make humans attend these things. The station floated in neutral space, which apparently meant nobody owned it, nobody wanted it, and it smelled faintly of recycled air and diplomatic desperation. He was Earth diplomatic attaché, which sounded impressive until you realized it meant he was basically a professional note-taker who occasionally had to smile at beings that could eat him. Marcus had degrees in xenopolitics and interstellar law. What he didn't have was the ability to care about the 47th Amendment to the Theta Sector Trade Agreement, which is what he'd been stuck discussing for the past 6 hours. The summit hall was packed with delegates from across the galaxy. The Vrex Collective had sent a cluster of floating jellyfish things that communicated through color changes. The Mordanian Empire brought their usual contingent of rock people who took everything way too literally. And the Zephyrites showed up in their environmental suits, because apparently oxygen was optional where they came from. Then Warlord Krathax the Unmerciful arrived, and the entire mood shifted. Krathax was 9 feet of reptilian muscle wrapped in ceremonial armor that probably cost more than Marcus's yearly salary. His scales were deep crimson, his eyes were the yellow of old bruises, and his smile showed exactly too many teeth. He strode into the hall like he owned the place, which honestly he might have, given his tendency to conquer things when he got bored. But it wasn't Krathax that made everyone shut up. It was what slithered behind him. The Voidfang was a legend in the outer sectors, 20 feet of bioengineered murder serpent with scales that shimmered like oil on water and fangs that dripped something Marcus really hoped was just saliva. It moved with the kind of liquid grace that said it had killed things bigger than you and wouldn't mind adding you to the list. Ah, fantastic, Marcus muttered into his coffee. He brought his emotional support murder noodle. The delegate beside him, a bird-like Clixon named Chur, clicked his beak nervously. That is the ceremonial battle serpent of the Krathax clan. It has never been defeated in the honor duel. Marcus paused mid-sip. The what now? The honor duels, Chur repeated, fluffing his feathers anxiously. You didn't read the summit documentation. Each species brings their apex predator for the ceremonial combat displays. It's tradition. Very ancient. Very mandatory. Very stupid, Marcus corrected, but his stomach was already sinking. Define mandatory. Refusal to participate is considered an insult to the Council. Your species could lose voting rights, trade agreements, basically everything short of a formal declaration of war. Marcus set down his coffee before he could throw it, and nobody thought to mention this to the human delegation because it was in subsection 12 of the Cultural Protocols attachment, Chur said helpfully. Page 847. Of course it was. Marcus watched as Krathax paraded his battle serpent around the hall, letting it hiss at various delegates who all stepped back appropriately. The Voidfang's reputation wasn't just hype. Last year it had fought a Ganmorian warbear and won in under 2 minutes. The year before that it killed something called a phase hunter, which could literally turn invisible. And Earth had sent Marcus, just Marcus, with his coffee and his paperwork, and his absolutely useless master's degree in conflict resolution. When exactly do these duels start? He asked, though he already knew he wasn't going to like the answer. 48 hours, Chur said. Opening ceremonies are tomorrow, then the combat trials begin. Your species is scheduled for the 2nd day, prime viewing slot. Prime viewing, Marcus repeated flatly. So everyone gets to watch humanity get eaten in high definition. Great. Love that for us. He pulled out his datapad and started scrolling through the list of participating species. The Vrex were bringing something called a crystal scorpion that could supposedly cut through titanium. The Zephyrites had a phase-shifting panther that existed partially in another dimension. Even the Mordanians, the literal rock people, had a creature listed, a magma basilisk. Earth's entry was blank, just a dash and a question mark. Because nobody, absolutely nobody, had thought to bring a predator to the mandatory predator party. Marcus excused himself from the observation deck and headed to the communications bay, his mind already racing through increasingly terrible options. He needed to call Earth. He needed to call someone who understood animals. He needed to call someone with spectacularly bad judgment who might actually think this was a good idea. He needed to call his brother. The communication lag to Earth was exactly 4 seconds, which gave Marcus just enough time between sentences to regret every life choice that had led him here. Jake Webb's face appeared on the screen, grinning like he'd just heard the setup to the world's best joke. He was wearing a shirt that said Wildlife Rehabilitator, but had mud stains that suggested he'd recently lost a fight with something small and angry. Marcus, my favorite over-educated brother, what cosmic disaster requires my expertise this time? I need you to send me a predator, Marcus said without preamble. Jake's grin widened. Okay, I'm listening. The Galactic Council has this tradition. Every species brings their apex predator to prove dominance, or something equally stupid. I have 48 hours to produce Earth's most terrifying animal, or humanity loses all diplomatic standing. And you called me instead of a zoo because zoos have paperwork and insurance and ethics committees. You have none of those things. Fair point, Jake acknowledged, leaning back in his chair. So what are we thinking? Lion? Tiger? Grizzly bear? I know a guy in Alaska who owes me a favor. Marcus pulled up the footage he'd recorded of the Void Fang. This is what I'm up against. 20 feet long, bioengineered killing machine, has never lost a fight. Also, it's venomous, armored, and apparently can unhinge its jaw wide enough to swallow a Clixon whole. Jake watched the Serpent glide across the screen, his expression shifting from amused to thoughtful. Okay, so we need something that can handle a snake. What about a saltwater crocodile? Those things are basically dinosaurs with better PR. The Mordanians are bringing a creature that lives in lava, Jake. A crocodile isn't going to cut it. Honey badger? Marcus blinked. What? Honey badger, Jake repeated, and there was something dangerous in his smile now, something that suggested this conversation was about to go sideways. Hear me out. Jake, I need an apex predator, not a meme. That's your first mistake. Honey badgers aren't memes. They're proof that evolution has a sense of humor and holds grudges. Jake was already pulling up files on his terminal. Look, you want scary? Everyone expects scary. Big teeth, big claws, intimidating roar. That's boring. That's predictable. Boring wins fights, Jake. Does it, though? Jake pulled up a video of a honey badger attacking a full-grown lion. The lion retreated. Honey badgers have literally zero fear response. Their brains don't have the part that says, hey, maybe don't attack that thing that's 10 times your size. They hunt cobras for fun. For fun, Marcus. They dig up and eat the cobras and then take a nap in the cobra's hole. Marcus watched the video with growing horror. The honey badger in question was maybe 15 pounds of furious muscle, wrapped in loose skin and bad decisions. It was currently trying to fight 3 jackals simultaneously while eating a snake. Bee stings so thick and loose that predators can't get a good grip, Jake continued, clearly warming to his pitch. Bee stings don't work on them, porcupine quills don't work on them. They've been documented taking machete strikes and just getting angrier about it. Oh, and they have a natural resistance to venom. Like a lot of venom. Cobra venom just makes them sleepy for a few hours, then they wake up and continue with the murder. This is insane. You called me at 3 in the morning asking for an animal that could fight a space snake in zero gravity. Sanity left this conversation before I answered the phone. Marcus rubbed his temples. He'd been awake for 19 hours and the coffee was starting to turn on him. Let me get this straight. You want me to bring a 15-pound weasel to fight a 20-foot serpent in front of the entire Galactic Council? Mustelid, technically, and yes, Jake, it's going to get eaten. Or, Jake held up a finger, and stay with me here. It's going to do what honey badgers do best, which is refuse to die and make that everyone else's problem. He pulled up another video, this one of a honey badger escaping from a zoo enclosure. It used a rake, a mud wall, and what appeared to be pure spite to scale a 15-foot wall. They're also terrifyingly smart. This one figured out how to open doors. This one learned to use tools. This one coordinated with another honey badger to execute a prison break that took them 3 weeks to plan. Marcus watched the escape footage. The honey badger moved with purpose, testing the wall, stacking objects, showing problem-solving skills that seemed almost vindictive. The psychological warfare alone would be worth it, Jake added. Imagine this scenario. The aliens see this tiny, fluffy thing, and they laugh. They mock humanity for bringing a decorative mammal to a death match. Then the match starts, and this 15-pound ball of rage just refuses to lose. Doesn't matter what the serpent does, the honey badger will not stop coming. That's the kind of reputation you can't buy. You're describing a horror movie from the snake's perspective. Exactly. Jake's grin was back. So, do you want to win, or do you want to bring something sensible and boring that follows the expected script? Marcus looked at the footage of the Void Fang again, looked at Krathek's smug face, looked at the roster of creatures that were designed to be impressive and terrifying. Then he looked at the honey badger, currently depicted in Jake's video feed, trying to attack its own reflection in a water dish. "I'm going to regret this," Marcus said. "Probably," Jake agreed cheerfully. "But you're going to regret it in the history books. I'll send you Patches. She's been here for 3 months recovering from a territorial dispute with a fence. Lost the fence. I think she's ready for space travel." "The honey badger's name is Patches?" "She's missing part of her ear from a fight with something we still haven't identified. Patches seemed appropriate. Also, she answers to it, kind of, if you use the right tone and are wearing protective gear." Marcus closed his eyes. This is how humanity ends. Not with a bang, but with a badly named mustelid. "That's the spirit," Jake said. "I'll have her on a transport within 6 hours. Reading you the care instructions now. Do not make direct eye contact. Do not corner her. Do not assume the crate is secure just because it looks secure. She's escaped from 4 different enclosures here, and we still don't know how she got past the 3rd lock." "Wonderful. Anything else?" "Yeah." Jake's expression turned serious. "Win or lose, Marcus. This is going to be the most entertaining thing the Galactic Council has ever seen. Make sure you record it." The transmission ended, leaving Marcus alone in the communications bay, with the growing certainty that he'd just made either the best or worst decision of his diplomatic career. Possibly both. He had 42 hours until Patches arrived, and 48 until the combat trials began. Marcus went to get more coffee. He was going to need it. The cargo bay of Concordia 7 had seen a lot of strange deliveries over the years. Alien artifacts, diplomatic gifts, once an entire frozen moon rock that turned out to be someone's idea of a practical joke. But the reinforced containment crate that arrived from Earth set a new standard for concerning. It had 17 warning labels. Marcus counted them twice to be sure. Danger, aggressive animal, caution, biting hazard, warning, escape artist, do not tap on crate. Seriously, do not tap on crate. We mean it about the tapping. And his personal favorite, if you can read this, you're too close. The cargo handler, a 6-armed Vexlian named Torque, kept a full 10 feet away from the crate. "Your package, Attaché Webb. I'm required to inform you that this container breached containment twice during transport, once in the cargo hold and once in the decontamination chamber. Both times the crew managed to recapture the specimen using what they described as excessive force and prayer." "Fantastic," Marcus muttered, approaching the crate with the caution of someone who'd already accepted his fate. There was a datapad magnetically attached to the side. He pulled it off and started reading. The care instructions were written in Jake's handwriting, which meant half of them were actual guidance and half were jokes that Marcus couldn't distinguish from the serious parts. Care and feeding of Patches, 1 adult honey badger, female, approximately 8 years old. Do not make eye contact unless you want to establish dominance. Spoiler alert, you will not establish dominance. Do not corner. Patches interprets corners as personal challenges. Do not attempt to pet, handle, or exist within 3 feet of without proper protective equipment. See attached list of equipment. Note, equipment is more like suggestions. Patches has opinions about equipment. Feeding. Patches eats basically anything but prefers meat. She has also eaten 1 leather boot, 6 feet of rubber hose, a wrench, and Jake's favorite hat. None of these were offered to her. She took them. Temperament. Imagine if anger was a physical substance and you gave it fur and teeth. That's Patches on a good day. Marcus scrolled to the medical history section and immediately regretted it. Injuries sustained during rehabilitation. Fought with a fence and won. Fought with a steel door and achieved a draw. Fought with a concrete wall and had to be sedated. Note, sedation took 4 times the normal dose. Patches has opinions about sedation too. Confirmed kills. 17 cobras, 1 python, assorted other snakes. We stopped counting, and 1 very unfortunate chicken that wandered into her enclosure. The chicken thing was an accident, and Patches seemed briefly sorry about it. Briefly. Special notes. Patches has learned to open simple latches, then complex latches, then latches we specifically designed to be Patches-proof. She can also climb vertical surfaces using nothing but spite and determination. Do not underestimate her problem-solving abilities. She's not just smart, she's vindictive smart. There was a sticky note at the bottom. "Good luck, bro. Humanity's counting on you. No pressure. Jake. P.S. She likes the name Patches but will not come when called because she doesn't respect authority." Marcus looked at the crate. From inside came a shuffling sound. followed by what could only be described as aggressive snuffling. "Do you want me to help you transport it to the holding area?" Torque asked, still maintaining his distance. "The holding area?" "Yes, where the other ceremonial battle creatures are being kept. Climate-controlled, reinforced walls, security monitoring." Marcus imagined Patches in a room with a crystal scorpion, a phase-shifting panther, and whatever else the delegates had brought. No, I think we'll keep her in the diplomatic quarters, away from anything she might decide to fight on principle." "Your funeral," Torque said, which wasn't reassuring coming from someone with 6 arms who could theoretically defend himself from 6 different angles. Getting the crate to his quarters required a cargo sled, 3 security escorts who absolutely refused to help once they read the warning labels, and Marcus's growing certainty that this was all an elaborate prank that would end with him explaining to Earth's government why humanity got kicked out of the Galactic Council. He managed to get the crate into his quarters and sealed the door. The room was standard diplomatic housing: bed, desk, food synthesizer, and a viewport showing the endless nothing of neutral space. He pushed the furniture against the walls, creating as much open space as possible. Then he read the opening instructions 3 times. To safely open the container, stand at least 6 feet away. Disengage primary lock. Wait 30 seconds. If no aggressive sounds, disengage secondary lock. Wait another 30 seconds. If creature is not actively trying to break through the container, proceed with tertiary lock. Have exit strategy ready. Marcus disengaged the primary lock. The sound of metal clicking open was followed immediately by a thump from inside the crate and what sounded distinctly like angry muttering. Do honey badgers mutter? Apparently this one did. He waited 30 seconds. Another thump. More muttering. Secondary lock. This time the shuffling intensified. He could see movement through the ventilation slats. Something gray and compact, pacing with purpose. 30 more seconds. His palms were sweating. Tertiary lock. The door didn't explode open like he'd expected. Instead, there was silence. Calculated silence. The kind of silence that suggested someone on the other side was planning something. "Patches?" Marcus tried, feeling ridiculous. "Nice honey badger?" The crate door swung open slowly, and Patches emerged like a queen surveying a disappointing kingdom. She was smaller than Marcus expected, and somehow more intimidating because of it. Maybe 15 pounds of compact muscle covered in coarse gray fur, with a distinctive white stripe down her back. Her face was masked in black and white, and one ear was indeed missing a chunk, giving her a lopsided, battle-scarred appearance. Her claws clicked against the metal floor. But it was her eyes that got him, small, dark, and filled with an intelligence that said she was currently calculating exactly how much chaos she could cause and whether Marcus was worth the effort. They stared at each other for 5 long seconds. Then Patches yawned, showing teeth that seemed disproportionately large for her size, and waddled over to the viewport. She stood on her hind legs, pressing her paws against the glass, looking out at the stars with what Marcus could only describe as disdain. "So you're Earth's champion," he said quietly. "You're going to fight a 20-foot serpent in front of the entire Galactic Council. Any thoughts on strategy?" Patches turned her head, looked at him with those calculating eyes, then went back to judging the universe through the window. "Yeah," Marcus said. "That's about what I expected." His datapad chimed. A message from Chur. "Ceremonial viewing of battle creatures begins in 2 hours. All delegates must present their champions in the display arena. Attendance mandatory. The Council is eager to see what humanity has brought." Marcus looked at Patches. Patches was now trying to climb the wall next to the viewport, succeeding despite the complete lack of handholds. "This is going to be a disaster," he told her. Patches reached the ceiling vent, tested it with her claws, and made a sound that somehow conveyed agreement and complete indifference simultaneously. Marcus went to find the protective gear Jake had mentioned. He had a feeling he was going to need it. The display arena was built to impress, which meant it was absolutely massive and filled with beings who had come to judge humanity's predator choice. Marcus stood in the staging area, wearing bite-proof gloves that went up to his elbows, a reinforced jacket, and what Jake had labeled as optimistic shin guards. Patches was back in her transport crate, which now had claw marks on the inside that definitely weren't there an hour ago. The arena itself was a zero-gravity dome, a sphere of transparent alloy that let spectators watch from every angle. It was designed for spectacular combat, the kind where creatures could use 3 dimensions instead of just 2, which was great for entertainment value and terrible for Marcus's blood pressure. Around him, other delegates were preparing their champions. The Vrex had brought their crystal scorpion, which looked like someone had carved murder out of diamond and given it way too many legs. It refracted light in nauseating patterns and made a sound like wind chimes having a nervous breakdown. The Zephyrites wheeled in their phase-shifting panther in a containment field. It kept flickering between solid and transparent, existing in multiple states simultaneously. Every few seconds, parts of it would just vanish and reappear somewhere else in the field. Marcus couldn't tell if it was showing off or having an existential crisis. And then there was the Void Fang. Krathax stood beside his battle serpent like a proud parent at a school recital, except the child was a bioengineered nightmare and the recital involved potential death. The Void Fang coiled and uncoiled, its scales catching the light, each movement precise and predatory. Its tongue flicked out, tasting the air, and its eyes tracked every creature in the staging area with focused intelligence. "Attaché, Webb," Krathax called out, his voice carrying across the arena. "I hear your species has finally brought a champion. I am eager to see what Earth considers a worthy predator." Several delegates turned to look. Word had apparently spread that humanity was participating. "It's going to be educational for everyone," Marcus said, which was technically true if you defined education as trauma. "The opening demonstrations begin shortly," Krathax continued, running a clawed hand along his serpent's scales. "The Void Fang will perform first. It has been too long since it had proper entertainment. Perhaps your creature will last longer than the Ganmorian warbear. That one died in 90 seconds. Very disappointing." "I'll make sure to pass along your performance notes," Marcus said dryly. The Arena Master, a floating orb of light that introduced itself as Coordinator Vess, materialized in the center of the staging area. Its voice came from everywhere and nowhere. "Honored delegates, the ceremonial display will commence in 10 minutes. Each champion will enter the arena individually to demonstrate their capabilities. Lethal force is permitted and encouraged. This is a display of dominance, not sport. The Council recognizes only strength." "Lethal force is encouraged," Marcus repeated under his breath. "Why does everything in galactic politics try to kill you?" "Because weakness is death," Chur said, appearing at his elbow. The Clixon had somehow gotten even more nervous since this morning. His feathers were fluffed up like he'd been electrocuted. "The Council must know that each species can defend itself. It is the foundation of mutual respect." "Mutual respect through mutual violence." Very enlightened. "You're bringing the creature out now, yes? The others want to see what humanity offers." Marcus looked at the crate, at the warning labels, at the scratch marks, at the small, determined shadows moving inside. "Yeah," he said. "Let's get this over with." He disengaged the locks one at a time. Same procedure as before. "Wait. Listen for aggressive sounds. Wait some more." The other delegates crowded closer, curiosity overriding caution. The crate door opened. Patches stepped out, surveyed the arena, and promptly sat down to scratch behind her remaining ear. There was a moment of absolute silence. Then someone laughed. Marcus couldn't see who, but it was followed by more laughter, rippling through the crowd of delegates like a wave of second-hand embarrassment. "That is a scavenger," one of the Mordonians rumbled, his rock-like features arranged in what might have been confusion. "A small digging mammal." "It is adorable," a Vrex delegate pulsed in colors that translated to amusement. "Does it perform tricks?" Krathax's laugh was the worst, deep, genuine, and absolutely delighted. "Humanity brings a pet to the ceremonial combat. How charmingly naive. Tell me, Attaché Webb, does your creature at least have a name, so we can honor its memory after the Void Fang finishes playing with it?" "Her name is Patches," Marcus said, keeping his voice level, even though his face was burning. "And she's not a pet." "Of course not," Krathax agreed, barely containing his mirth. "Pets are useful. This is merely decorative." Patches, apparently finished with her scratching, waddled toward the viewing window of the arena. She stood up on her hind legs again, paws against the glass, looking into the zero-gravity combat space with those calculating eyes. Then she turned around, looked directly at the Void Fang, and made a sound. It wasn't quite a growl. It wasn't quite a hiss. It was something more fundamental than that. Something that bypassed language entirely and went straight to the part of the brain that understood threats. It was the audio equivalent of, "We have unfinished business." The Void Fang's head snapped toward her, tongue flicking out rapidly. Its body language changed, coiling tighter. "Oh, your pet makes sounds," Krathax said. "How threatening. The Void Fang is surely trembling." But Marcus noticed something. The serpent hadn't looked away from Patches. Not once. Its eyes tracked her as she waddled back toward Marcus, claws clicking on the floor with each deliberate step. "Delegates, please prepare your champions," Coordinator Vess announced. "The demonstrations begin now." The first match was between the Crystal Scorpion and something called a plasma eel from the Nexian Collective. The eel was basically a bolt of lightning that had gained sentience and anger management issues. They released both creatures into the zero-gravity arena and sealed it. What followed was 3 minutes of violent refraction, as the eel tried to electrocute the scorpion, and the scorpion tried to carve the eel into sushi. The eel won by surrounding the scorpion in an electromagnetic field until it shattered. The sound was like a chandelier being thrown into a wood chipper. The crowd cheered. The Vrax delegation looked disappointed. Next was the phase-shifting panther against a Mordonian magma basilisk, which was exactly what it sounded like, a lizard made of living lava. The panther phased in and out of reality, trying to avoid the heat. The basilisk just existed at temperatures that made reality negotiate. The panther got in 3 solid hits by attacking from partially dimensional space, then retreated. They called it a draw. More cheers. The crowd was getting energized. Then Coordinator Vess announced, "Warlord Krathax and the Voidfang." The Serpent slithered into the arena with practiced ease. In zero gravity, it was even more impressive, using the walls and ceiling as launching points, moving through 3 dimensions like it was born to it. Krathax had released a practice target into the arena, some kind of armored drone designed to simulate prey. The Voidfang destroyed it in 40 seconds. It used speed, precision, and a bite force that crumpled the drone's titanium plating like aluminum foil. Then, for good measure, it wrapped around the remains and squeezed until components started popping out. The venom sacs in its fangs pulsed, dripping acid that ate through the drone's core. The crowd went absolutely wild. Krathax bowed. The Voidfang coiled in the center of the arena, victorious and magnificent. "And that," Krathax announced, his voice amplified across the arena, "is true power. I invite any species to challenge the Voidfang tomorrow in formal combat, especially humanity." He looked directly at Marcus. "I promise to make your creature's death quick. It would be cruel to let something so small suffer." Marcus felt the weight of every delegate's eyes on him, felt the expectation, felt the absolute certainty that he was about to watch Patches become a cautionary tale. He looked down at the honey badger. She was cleaning her claws, utterly unbothered by the display of violence she'd just witnessed. "We accept," Marcus heard himself say. Chur made a strangled sound. "Marcus, no! You saw what that thing did to a titanium drone." "I saw," Marcus said. He leaned down toward the crate, where his datapad was still displaying Jake's notes. One line stood out. "Honey badgers don't have a fear response. They literally cannot comprehend the concept of a fair fight, because all fights are fair if you're angry enough." He picked up Patches, who allowed this with only minimal squirming and one warning nip that didn't quite break skin through the gloves. "Tomorrow," he told Krathax, "you're Serpent versus Patches, no holds barred." "Delightful," Krathax said. "I look forward to it." As Marcus carried Patches back to his quarters, he heard the betting odds being called out behind him. Humanity was at 500 to 1 against. "No pressure," he told Patches. "Just the entire reputation of our species riding on whether you can beat a 20-foot murder serpent in zero gravity." Patches yawned and tried to bite his nose. "Yeah," Marcus said, "that's the spirit." The combat arena was packed. Every delegate from every species had shown up, which meant the viewing galleries around the zero-gravity dome were filled with beings who'd come to watch humanity embarrass itself on a galactic stage. Marcus spotted representatives from species he didn't even know existed, all here for the spectacle. The betting had reached absurd levels. Humanity was now at 800 to 1 against. Someone had started a pool on how long Patches would survive. The over-under was 45 seconds. Marcus stood in the staging area, wearing his protective gear and holding Patches' crate. Inside, the honey badger was making sounds that suggested she knew exactly what was about to happen, and had opinions about the wait time. Across the arena, Krathax stood with the Voidfang, which was coiled and ready. The serpent's scales gleamed under the arena lights, every inch of it designed for killing. Its eyes tracked Marcus with cold intelligence. Coordinator Vess materialized between them. "The formal combat trial will now commence. Rules are as follows. Both creatures enter the arena simultaneously. Combat continues until one creature yields, dies, or is rendered unable to continue. Lethal force is not only permitted but expected. There is no time limit. There is no mercy. May the strongest species prevail. Comforting, Marcus muttered. Chur had positioned himself in the front row of the viewing gallery, his feathers so puffed up he looked twice his normal size. Several other delegates Marcus had worked with over the past months were there too, all wearing expressions that ranged from morbid curiosity to genuine concern. "Attaché Webb," Krathax called out, his voice booming across the arena. "I want you to know I hold no ill will toward your species. Your creature's death will serve as an educational omen for all who watch. Sometimes, the greatest lesson is knowing one's limitations." "Thanks for the pep talk," Marcus said, really feeling the diplomatic spirit here. He opened Patches's crate using the now familiar sequence of locks and waiting periods. The honey badger emerged, took one look at the arena, and made that sound again, the one that bypassed language and went straight to primal understanding. Several delegates in the viewing gallery shifted uncomfortably. "Both creatures to the entry ports," Coordinator Vess announced. The arena had 2 entrance tubes, one on each side. They'd equalize to 0 gravity once sealed, then the interior doors would open simultaneously. Marcus walked Patches to the entrance, set her down, and watched her waddle into the tube without hesitation. She looked back at him once. Those dark eyes held something that might have been acknowledgement or might have been just, "Leave me alone, I have work to do." "Good luck," Marcus said quietly. "Please don't die. Jake will never let me hear the end of it." Patches turned away and pressed her face against the interior door, waiting. Across the arena, the Voidfang slithered into its tube, filling it with coiled muscle and barely contained violence. Marcus took his position in the viewing gallery. His hands were shaking, his mouth was dry. Every instinct he had was screaming that this was a terrible idea and he should stop it right now. "Sealing entry ports," Coordinator Vess announced, "equalizing to 0 gravity. Interior doors opening in 3, 2, 1. The doors opened. For exactly 5 seconds, nothing happened. The Voidfang drifted into the arena with lethal grace, orienting itself instantly to the 3-dimensional space. It had done this before. It knew how to use the walls, the ceiling, every surface as a weapon. Patches floated out of her tube, legs windmilling slightly, clearly trying to figure out what the hell was happening to gravity. The crowd started laughing again. Here was this tiny mammal, flailing in 0G while a legendary battle serpent positioned itself for the kill. Then the Voidfang made its fatal mistake. It hissed at her. Patches stopped flailing. Her legs found purchase against the wall. Her body language changed from confused to focused in half a heartbeat. And she launched herself like a furry missile directly at the serpent's face. The Voidfang, used to opponents that tried to maintain distance or calculate strategy, didn't expect the honey badger to simply attack with 0 preamble. Patches hit the serpent's snout, claws extended, and immediately went for the eyes. The crowd's laughter died. The Voidfang recoiled, shaking its head violently, trying to dislodge her. In 0 gravity, the movement sent both of them spinning toward the opposite wall. Patches didn't let go. She climbed up the serpent's head, found the gap between scales near the skull ridge, and bit down. The Voidfang made a sound Marcus had never heard before, something between a roar and a scream. It tried to coil, tried to use its crushing power, but in 0 gravity it couldn't get leverage, and Patches, with her loose skin and flexible body, was nearly impossible to grab. When the serpent's fangs sank into her shoulder, she just got angrier. "The venom," someone in the crowd gasped. "That venom can kill a Ganmorian in minutes." Patches shook it off like she'd been bitten by a particularly annoying mosquito and went back to work. She ricocheted off walls, using the 0G to her advantage now, building momentum. Every time she hit the Voidfang, she aimed for joints, eyes, anything that looked vulnerable. The serpent tried its paralytic spit. The glob of venom hit Patches directly in the face. She paused, sneezed violently, then continued attacking with what appeared to be increased motivation. "It's not working," Chur breathed beside Marcus. "None of the Voidfang's weapons are working." The serpent tried speed, whipping around the arena in complex patterns designed to confuse and disorient prey. Patches just grabbed onto its midsection and refused to let go, biting and clawing systematically, as if working through a checklist. The Voidfang tried to crush her against the wall. The impact would have killed most creatures. Patches bounced off, oriented herself in midair, and came back at a different angle. 3 minutes in, the legendary battle serpent was bleeding from a dozen wounds. Its movements were getting less coordinated. It tried to retreat to the corner of the arena, tried to gain distance. Patches didn't allow distance. She pursued with the single-minded determination of someone who had never heard the word quit and wouldn't care if she had. The crowd was dead silent now. The Void Fang, undefeated champion of the ceremonial combats, was being systematically dismantled by 15 pounds of angry mammal. The serpent tried one last desperate move, opening its jaws impossibly wide to swallow Patches whole. She wedged herself in its mouth, braced against the upper and lower jaw, and just started biting the inside of its throat. The Void Fang's eyes went wide. It thrashed, it spun, it tried everything in its considerable arsenal. Patches was not impressed. 4 minutes into the fight, the serpent was making sounds that no serpent should make. Wounded, desperate, defeated. It tried to retreat back to its entry tube. Patches rode it like a very angry jockey, never stopping her assault. 5 minutes in, the Void Fang wasn't fighting anymore. It was fleeing, its legendary pride replaced by something that looked a lot like panic. Coordinator Vess's voice came through, uncertain for the first time. "Does the Void Fang yield?" Krathax was at the observation window, his expression somewhere between shock and denial. His perfect, undefeated battle serpent was cowering in the corner of the arena, while a honey badger tried to fight her own reflection in the transparent alloy. "Warlord Krathax," Coordinator Vess pressed. "Does your champion yield?" Krathax's jaw worked silently. Then, barely audible, "It yields." The arena erupted. Not in cheers exactly, but in a sound that was half disbelief and half something that might have been respect, or might have been terror. Maybe both. Marcus couldn't move, couldn't process what he'd just watched. Patches had won. She'd actually won. The honey badger was extracted from the arena by 3 handlers in full protective gear, all of whom looked like they were questioning their career choices. She was bleeding from multiple wounds, covered in serpent venom, and appeared to be looking for someone else to fight. They got her back into the crate. It took 4 attempts. Marcus walked down to the staging area on legs that didn't feel entirely connected to his body. Krathax was there, staring at his serpent, which had curled into a defensive ball and refused to come out. "I don't understand," the Warlord said quietly. "The Void Fang has faced creatures 3 times its size, bioengineered killers, predators from death worlds. How did your small mammal—" "Honey badger," Marcus corrected, finding his voice. "Her name is Patches, and the thing about honey badgers is, they don't know how to lose, because they don't know how to quit. Your serpent is a weapon. Patches is a natural disaster that happens to have fur." Krathax looked at him, really looked at him, and something shifted in his expression. "Your species is more dangerous than we thought." "We're really not," Marcus said tiredly. "We're mostly harmless. We just occasionally make terrible decisions and see them through to the bitter end." "That," Krathax said slowly, "is perhaps the most dangerous trait of all." The council chamber was different after the fight. Delegates who'd ignored Marcus for months suddenly found reasons to talk to him. The Vreks wanted to know more about Earth's fauna. The Mordanians asked if all human companions were this aggressive. Even the Zephyrites, who rarely engaged with carbon-based species, inquired about acquiring honey badgers for research purposes. Marcus told them all no, firmly, repeatedly. Krathax approached him after the formal session, moving with less swagger than before. "Attaché Webb, I wish to apologize for underestimating your species." "Apology accepted," Marcus said, because diplomacy was still technically his job. "And for what it's worth, the Void Fang is impressive, Patches is just unreasonable. I have requested a rematch." Marcus, who was in the middle of drinking water, nearly choked. "Absolutely not." "But surely—" "Your serpent is currently refusing to leave its containment unit. My brother sent me a message that just said 'told you so' 47 times. And Patches has escaped her crate 3 times in the last hour, once she got into the ventilation system. Station security is still trying to locate her." He rubbed his temples. "There will be no rematch. Ever. I'm sending her home before she declares war on the entire station." Krathax considered this. "Perhaps that is wise." The Galactic Council officially recognized Earth battle mammal as a legitimate apex predator. Humanity's voting rights were secured, trade agreements were renewed, and Marcus became the attaché who brought a honey badger to a space serpent fight, and somehow made it work. 3 days later, as he was preparing Patches for transport back to Earth, another delegate stopped him in the corridor, a representative from the Corvani systems, tentacles waving nervously. "Attaché Webb, I have a question about Earth's wildlife. Do you have anything more dangerous than the honey badger?" Marcus thought about Australia, about cassowaries and box jellyfish and saltwater crocodiles and funnel web spiders. About the fact that Earth had an entire continent where everything was specifically designed to kill you in creative ways. He thought about mantis shrimp that could punch through aquarium glass, about hippos that killed more people annually than lions, about geese which weren't even predators but acted like they were anyway. He thought about what would happen if the Galactic Council knew exactly how many nightmare creatures Earth had produced through the simple process of evolution and spite. No, Marcus said without hesitation. The honey badger is it. That's our apex predator. We don't have anything else even remotely concerning. The Corvani looked relieved and drifted away. Patches, watching from her crate, made a sound that might have been approval or might have been commentary on Marcus's lying skills. Don't judge me, he told her. The galaxy isn't ready for the rest of Earth's wildlife. They barely survived you. He sent Jake a final message. Patches performed admirably. Humanity's reputation is secure. Never doing this again. Never. Also, what's your stance on geese? Jake's response came back 4 seconds later. Geese are demons, wearing bird costumes. Why? No reason, Marcus typed. Just making sure we never, ever tell the aliens about geese. He sealed Patches' crate, triple-checked the locks, and handed her off to the transport crew with detailed instructions and several warnings about underestimating small mammals. As the transport departed, Marcus returned to his quarters and poured himself a drink. Tomorrow he'd go back to trade agreements and amendment discussions and all the boring parts of diplomacy. But today, he'd live with the knowledge that humanity had won a ceremonial combat with a 15-pound ball of fury named Patches, and the galaxy would never look at Earth the same way again. His datapad chimed, a message from Coordinator Vess. Official inquiry: would humanity be interested in participating in next year's ceremonial combat trials? Marcus deleted the message without responding. Some victories, he decided, were best left unrepeated. In the ventilation system 3 decks above, Patches finally found her way back to the cargo bay, set off 2 security alarms, and scared a maintenance crew so badly they filed an incident report about a small, aggressive demon. Station. Security caught her an hour later. She'd made it to the commissary and was attempting to fight a food synthesizer. Marcus signed the final incident reports, paid the damage fees, and added one more item to his diplomatic record. Successfully prevented interstellar war. Do not send honey badgers to peace summits.